And 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome everybody to the Life Point Table Talk podcast. We are coming in this week for the Bible reading reflection on week 16. My name is Jason. I'm here with Brother Tyler.
Hello.
And this week we are getting into 1Samuel 19 through the end, and then 2Samuel through chapter 6, then Luke 16 through 18, and we got a lot to go over here, but thank you all for tuning in. Hope some of y'all are reading along with us, really enjoying this year and getting a lot out of it. I know you will too. So keep tuning in, read along, and subscribe and share. And let's jump into it. Gonna start off on 1Samuel 19.
It's a good one.
And let's see. We've got Saul, Mr. Saul, the king, is asking Jonathan and his soldiers to kill David. But they're friends, so Jonathan warns David.
Yeah.
They have this whole...
Jonathan's like, what? We have no reason to want to kill him.
Yeah.
What's up, Dad?
This keeps happening over and over. And there's this whole big setup where he hides in a field, and Jonathan's going to shoot arrows.
That's 20.
Oh, is that 20?
Yeah.
What's this part?
19 is where, for the second time, Saul ends up hurling a spear at David.
Okay.
In 19, which it's funny.
That's right. Yeah.
Reading through 1Samuel,
while he's playing the harp for him.
Yeah, I keep thinking to myself, reading through 1Samuel, will someone please take this guy's spear away? He's just like out of control.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. And there's the time when his wife helps him escape.
Yeah, that's in 19. Michal.
Yeah. With a
one
statue.
Pronunciation.
I love it. A statue in goat's hair.
Yeah.
In the bed.
Yeah, and the actual Hebrew it says it's an idol. Yeah. So it shows you where she's at, and we're going to see it later on. I think in 2Samuel, it kind of comes full circle with the fact that she may still be tethered to this, idolatrous other lifestyle that's not the way of Yahweh that David's so passionate about.
Well, in this situation, it helps David out.
It sure does. Thank goodness. Yeah, thank goodness for goat's hair and idols. And
yeah, right.
He gets the skadoodle.
Yeah. So.
And then 19 ends with the I guess you say it in Ramah, R-A-M-A-H. Fascinating story.
Wait a second. There is a part here. Wait, in 19, that's
yeah. That's where it ends.
Wait, 19 is where Saul sends soldiers to get David then, but they start prophesying. Am I right here? He does this 3 times.
Yeah, but
each time it happens till he goes. And then he starts prophesying.
David goes to I don't know how you pronounce it, Naoth in Ramah is where he went, and it's the Hebrew there is ambiguous. It could also mean like a hut or pastures, or it makes you think like a compound kind of vibe, like a community, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody that goes just gets like Holy Spirit infused, or
what are the translations? It's like a prophet's village, they called it.
Exactly. Yeah. The one, the New Jerusalem Bible calls it the huts at Ramah.
Nice.
The huts.
I like that. And Saul eventually shows... Well, David's hiding there with Samuel, I believe, at this point. Mm-hmm. He had gone and hid with him after he escaped, and Saul keeps sending people, and they keep prophesying.
Yeah, until Saul himself...
magic place or something.
Yeah, it says the Spirit of God came upon him as well, and he walked along prophesying. He even stripped off his clothes and prophesied before Samuel.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
You would think that would be the bottom. That he might stop at that point.
Yeah, it's like
literally taking your clothes off, prophesying good things for David.
Something's happening there.
But he doesn't. He doesn't stop chasing him.
No, poor Saul.
So David escapes Prophet Village, or the hut. He meets Jonathan, And this is, they make this whole plan where he hides in the field.
Yeah.
And he's going to shoot arrows to warn him. And there's like a banquet where David doesn't show up. And that's...
Yeah, and at first Saul's like, well, that makes sense. He might be unclean. So many things could make you unclean where you weren't supposed to take place in that holy meal. But then the next day, it's just a regular meal. So Saul's like, where is he? He freaks out again.
Yep. And so Jonathan gives him the warning. Long story short, goes out and meets him. And they're both really upset. They're crying.
Yeah.
And they make
it's a beautiful scene.
Promises and vows to each other, which is really this sticks to the end of both their lives and beyond. Yeah. Actually, it goes on to those children. And he sticks to it.
Yeah, it's like covenant making.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And let's see, 21, David then goes to the priest Ahimelech.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. David says he's on a mission for Saul. It's interesting. David kind of gets into some mischief having to because he's on the run.
Yeah.
So he's making stuff up.
Yeah.
He acts crazy at one point.
And it seems like he never truly violates the Torah or the, but he's kind of maybe bending some rules here and there. Or...
And this is one where he asks the priest for food. Mm-hmm. He eats the sacred bread. I believe Jesus.
With Jesus
talks about that.
Talks about it, yeah.
Yeah. And another cool thing, he has no weapons at this point, and he asks the priest for a sword.
So you got anything around here?
Yeah. I just so happened to have Goliath's sword.
Yeah,
the one you killed.
You might remember that.
Yeah, right. And so he gives him that sword, and that's the one David ends up using.
Yeah, and then it ends up in 21 where he goes to the Philistine region, and he's got to act crazy. He realizes he might be a little over his head.
Yeah, they start to recognize him and who he is.
Yeah.
And so to get out of it, he's drooling.
Yeah, drooling.
Scratching on the door.
Spit on his bed, yeah.
And they say, hey, this guy's crazy, get him away. So it works.
Mm-hmm.
His crazy routine. He leaves there. We're into 22. He goes to Dullam Cave. He's joined by his family and other groups of people. It says, it's kind of outlaws or people who are in trouble and debt. Different people come and join him.
Neat. People that were discontented. Lots of other translations. It kind of makes you think like the outcasts of society, like the down and out, on the fringes.
And that becomes his group. He's got 400 men.
Yeah.
A prophet tells David to go to Judah. And this is kind of wild. Saul finds out that Ahimelech, the priest, helped David. He calls him in, questions him and everything. Then he orders his soldiers to kill him, but they won't.
Yeah, like no way.
They were not going to kill him. So this other guy, you know his name? Doug?
Doug?
Is it Doug?
Doeg?
Is it Doug?
Edomite?
Doeg does it. And he happened to be there.
Because he's an Edomite, and he's not an Israelite.
And he doesn't only kill him, he goes back and kills everybody.
No, it's absolutely tragic.
85 priests and everyone there, men, women,
families,
children, and cattle and donkeys and sheep, everything. Wipes them out.
And we're starting to see here that Saul's he's turning completely evil. I mean, this is like unimaginable.
Yeah.
What he's asking for here. And what's amazing too, though, is when David finds out, he takes responsibility for it. He says, "This is my fault. I caused the dominoes that ended up with this happening."
Yeah.
Which I thought that was amazing, just his heart. And you see the same thing we'll see later with Abigail, who's also an amazing character.
Yeah, totally. David goes on, him and his men in 23 there. He goes and saves the town of Keilah from the Philistines. Probably saying that wrong. And during this time, Abiathar is the son of Ahimelech,
He escaped from the
he
massacre.
He's the only one who survived, and he goes with the ephod and joins David.
So amazing.
And that plays in later on. David keeps using
big time. Yeah,
it's he brought the tools to talk to God.
Yeah, the tools. Oh, wow,
it's amazing. And he uses it several times coming up. And so Saul hears David has saved this city and goes and surround it. And David asks for the ephod and prays to God. And he asks, will the leaders of this town turn him over to Saul? And is Saul coming? And God answers and says, yes, Saul is coming, and they will turn you over. And so that's what was going to happen. But David now knows what's going to happen, so he escapes. And Saul finds out and decides not to go. And David is now hiding in the hill country. And during this time, he meets Jonathan again. Again, they make promises to each other to be loyal. Let's see. Saul goes to the hill country to attack David. At some point, they're on like opposite sides of the hill.
Yeah.
It's like a close call.
Yeah, it's like narrow escapes.
They were really probably going to get him, but then it says the Philistines happened to attack right at that time, and so they have to turn back and
go fight that battle.
Saul goes to fight them. So we're at 24.
Yeah, 24
Saul,
is a biggie.
Is fighting. He takes 3,000 soldiers and goes to find David. David's in a cave. This is a pretty popular one. I remember growing up.
Yeah.
Saul goes to the bathroom in the cave, and David sneaks up. And
his men are like, look, Yahweh has delivered him into your hands. Just kill him right here. Be done with it.
But his conscience won't let him. And so he cuts off a part of his robe. As Saul is leaving or is left, David shouts out to him and explains how he spared his life. And Saul weeps and sees that David did good for him. Saul makes David swear an oath. It's another one.
He also prophesies that David will be king.
Yeah, he says, I know you're going to be king.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge.
It's very strange. He just can't stop trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Swear that his descendants won't be destroyed by David, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Which plays in later.
Yeah, which David honors with Mephibosheth.
Yep. 25, Samuel dies.
I had one verse. Amazing. This huge character, just one verse, and Samuel died. And they mourned for him.
He had so much going on. His life was so full,
Yeah.
Incredible. So that's it. He's gone. That's a huge passing there. Let's see. This gets into the whole story where David is in the wilderness. There's this.
He needs some sustenance for
wealthy
his men.
Guy,
like crazy wealthy. Sounds like.
His people are out there taking care of their sheep, and David doesn't take them. He doesn't attack, and kind of protects them.
Yeah, it's like a protection.
Yeah, and so he asks for food, and this guy says no, and it kind of goes out of its way to say this Nabal guy is kind of wicked and foolish.
Yeah, one translation I read said churlish.
A trillish.
Churlish. Churlish. Churlish.
So he won't give him food, and David is mad, and he's going to go take him out. He's going to take the whole place out, and the guy doesn't know it and would have no way to stop it. But his wife is smarter. Her name is Abigail. She sneaks in and takes food and wine to David and his men, falls at his feet, and asks for mercy. And David spares her and Nabal. And
just like David a couple of chapters earlier, she takes the blame. She's like the intercessor for Nabal, Nabal, whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah, it says, I should have been there. She said, I should have been there. I could have stopped this. It's my fault. Have mercy.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And a day after she goes back, Nabal has a stroke, is paralyzed for 10 days, and then he dies. It says God killed him.
Yeah.
Took him out. And David takes Abigail as his wife. And he also marries Ahinoam from Jezreel.
He's going to end up with quite a few wives.
Yeah. And interesting, it just notes there that Saul took back the wife he gave David at the end of that chapter.
Yeah, gave her to someone else.
Gave it to somebody else. He's mad at him. 26. Let's see here. Again, David is hiding. Saul finds out where he is, takes 3,000 men to go get him. They have a camp in the wilderness. David sneaks in to Saul's camp and goes in his tent. One of David's soldiers is with him and is trying to get David to kill Saul.
Yeah, Saul's asleep with the spear right by his head.
Yeah, again, like you said, the Lord has delivered him. You can
kill him. And David's like, I will not touch the Lord's anointed.
Yeah, that becomes his name for Saul.
Yahweh is anointed. I won't touch him. But they take the spear, and I'm like, finally, someone took this guy's spear away. But they give it right back in a few moments.
There at the end of 26, David does say God will strike him down. Saul will, in his life, die, or he's going to die in battle. Yeah. It's almost like the last story we heard with, what was his name, Nabal. He didn't have to. This was going to...
Yeah, it was God's judgment.
It was coming. Yeah. Saul's got some stuff coming to him. Again, David shows him what he could have done, says he was wrong and won't try to harm David anymore.
Yeah, it's amazing too. There's a part where he says, if we've committed a sin, let us offer a sacrifice and repent. But if this is from men, it's a whole different story, which it is.
Yeah. As we get into 27, David believes, and rightfully so, Saul is going to kill him. He's not going to stop. And so he goes, and this is wild.
This is so wild.
This guy goes and lives with the Philistines.
They're nemesis.
Yes, the ones that he got famous for killing. They're giant. And
David just happens to be carrying Goliath's sword, too.
Yeah, right. They give him a place to live, the Philistines, in Ziklag. It's the Philistine countryside. And it says David lived there for 1 year and 4 months. And during this time, David and his men become raiders. They're raiding other towns.
But it's important to note they're not raiding Israelites.
Yeah.
They're raiding Israel's enemies.
Yeah. But it does make note that he kills all the men and women when he goes to these places so they can't tell on him. So people don't know what he's doing. So there was something there he wasn't particularly proud of, but he was, I guess, doing what he had to do.
Yeah. Well, I read the New American Commentary said that, but David redeemed his time in this Philistine exile, using it to resume Israel's conquest of Canaan.
That's true.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it made me think, too, like I said this the last time we did a podcast together, but that show Last Kingdom, their main character, Uhtred, is like, whose side is he on? Is he a Dane? Is he with the, the English?
It really sticks. It was a very confused time. There are little pockets.
He's surviving.
Yeah, there's little pockets of tribes and gangs and kingdoms. It's just all messed up and crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like mob families.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And so they see David doing this stuff, these raids and stuff, and he becomes trusted by the Philistine king. And so much so, he becomes that guy's bodyguard. The Philistine king, or one of the translation calls it that, his own bodyguard.
He is, and he's like with him to the end. It'll be his cohorts of people under him that will eventually say, "There's no way, dude."
Yeah, and so this gets into 28 here.
Oh boy!
And this is pretty wild. Samuel has died. We talked about that, and so Saul has removed all mediums and magicians from the land. which is interesting, which means they were there in the first place.
Because to use them is a capital offense per the Torah.
But they were there before.
Yeah. It's against their law.
And Saul prays, but God is not answering him. And so he has someone find the medium for him, and they find this woman medium, and Saul disguises himself and sneaks in and goes to her. And
I love it. I wonder, because George Lucas, I wonder if he's familiar with this passage, because she's an indoor.
Oh, nice.
But it's no Ewoks here.
Yeah.
This is different. This is a necromancer.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. She has in the translation I was reading, a ritual pit. And he asked her to conjure someone up. This must have been something they did or practiced. She knew what he was asking for, and he knew what to ask for. And so he asked her to conjure up Samuel. And so Samuel shows up. And
just kind of matter of fact.
It freaks her out. And she cries. And which is funny. We were talking about that before, like, maybe it was
the first time this ever worked.
Yeah, she was doing kind of a hoax, tricking people before, and then it actually happened.
What the?
If it was happening all the time, maybe she wouldn't be so shocked.
Yeah, she cried out loudly.
Yeah. And but she's also mad because she figures out it's Saul, and he's tricked her.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it says she sees a divine being.
Yeah, I've seen one like a god.
Yeah. I wonder what that looked like.
I know.
But then it goes on to say an old man wrapped in a robe.
Yeah.
So I don't know how. There must have been something more than that.
Pretty ambiguous.
That made him look like a divine being, a ghost or a spirit of some sort.
Yeah.
And so they have a conversation. Samuel says, "Why are you disturbing me?"
Yeah.
And Saul says, "I'm in trouble with the Philistines. God has left me, so I'm calling you up to tell me what to do." And Samuel said, "Why are you asking me? God has done what I told you he was going to do." And
Samuel's like, "I told you before I was dead.
He brought me back for this. I already told you.
He's already taken this from you."
Yeah.
Which is
interesting because he did say that, and then it just goes on.
Yeah.
Like he was just
And it wasn't any like new information. He didn't really answer Saul's questions. He just told him what he already knew.
Yeah.
He's like, "No, God already took this from you."
Yeah.
And he's given it to David.
And he says, God's going to hand you over to the Philistines tomorrow. And this was fascinating.
I guess that is new information.
You and your sons will be with me tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's a whole rabbit hole, can of worms.
Where are they going? Where were they?
Yeah. And if Samuel's awesome and Saul's not, why? How are they going to be together? And there's just a whole lot there.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
And
so Saul is obviously totally deflated now. He's terrified. He's laying on the ground. I feel for Saul. This guy was messed up, tortured. Wasn't working out for him. They have to get him up and encourage him to eat, and he finally does.
It's going to be his final meal.
Yeah,
which I think has a lot of gravity.
This is amazing. We get into 29. David is literally with the Philistines now,
ready to go to battle,
and he is joining their ranks to go attack Israel. It's amazing.
Well, and you have to wonder too, because he's been so crafty, and he's one thing about David you see over and over again. We'll see it in chapter 30. He's always consults Yahweh. David always consults his God first. So you have to wonder if there's some stuff that's like unwritten. Like, was he kind of undercover? Was he going to be? Because what happens is the Philistine king's guys say, "Look, you can't have this guy and his men come with us. He's going to turn on us mid-battle."
Yeah. But there was, and there is, we'll see later, a kind of civil war going on between him and Saul and Saul's house.
Totally.
So he might have gone. I don't know.
Who knows? Or he might have done exactly what the commanders of the Philistine army said he was going to do. Like, he was going to turn on them, so they send him away.
Yep.
Which is huge because, I mean, that took him far from the battle that would end up killing Saul, which he'd been so against.
Yeah.
On numerous occasions, how he would not harm the Lord's anointed.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing turn of events.
Yeah, it really is. And so he gets out of this battle. They go to the battle. David returns. Okay, there's this other side story. He returns to Ziklag, and it's raided. Amalekites have raided it. They burned it down, and they have stolen
all their families,
women and children, their family, and his men are mad. So mad, David's afraid they're going to stone him. Again, he asks, "Bring me the ephod." Bring it. And so he asks God if he should pursue, and it's yes. And so David does, and they get all their stuff back and more.
Yeah.
And more. And I love it. At one point they said, they start saying, "This is David's plunder." Like, I think
they switched their tone.
It was like, I don't know. It was like slang bragging kind of thing.
Well, and the way
this is mine.
The way the narrative kind of goes a little back and forth these past couple of chapters, and I was reading through like a map, like a chronological order of things that happened. And so really, as time went by, like on the space-time continuum, David was consulting Yahweh the same time Saul was consulting a medium, which I thought was really stood out.
Yeah.
Because it's all happening the next day.
Yeah.
What happens next?
And so that leads us into 31. The Philistines are fighting with Israel. They're beating them. They're chasing them. And they kill Saul's sons, all of his sons. Or not all of them, but Jonathan.
Yeah, we'll find out later the one was missing.
Abinadab?
Sure.
Gosh, I'm so terrible at this. Malchishua? God, I'm going to stop. So his sons.
I would say Abinadab, Malchishua. Yeah, his boys, but most importantly is Jonathan.
Yeah, and Saul is wounded. The archers have got him, and he's leaning on his spear, kind of hanging on. He asks his armor bearer to kill him, but he won't do it. So Saul falls on his own sword and dies. And it says his armor bearer saw what happened. And
maybe
he does the same thing, but it sounds like
because we're going to find out.
The story later is a little different.
2 Samuel chapter 1, maybe he didn't die. Maybe he intended to die. We'll see when we get there.
Yeah, and so this is the end here. The Philistines cut off Saul's head. They take his armor and put it in his temple. And the residents, though, who lived around that area, I think, they took his body and his son's body, and they burn it and bury it. I guess that was a more honorable thing to do.
Yeah,
later, which David appreciates later.
Yes, he sure does.
And so now we're in 2 Samuel. Let's see. After the death of Saul and Jonathan, David, the timeline's a little interesting. He has just got back from
his rescue.
His rescue of his things and his family, and he gets back and he hears what has happened. And an Amalekite, it says, has come to David, and he says he just happened to come across Saul on Mount Gilboa, and he was wounded and leaning on his spear, and Saul asked him to finish him off, so the man kills him.
And really, if you look at that language, that could make sense. Like Saul could have leaned on his spear, just like chapter 31 said, but it just didn't. It didn't take
all the way.
Yeah, and so his armor bearer saw that, offed himself. That guy came down.
Saul's still alive.
Saul's still like hanging on. I mean, it's actually a brutal scene if you think about it.
It really is.
It's like out of a movie or something.
Yeah.
So it really could line up.
And so, but the guy takes his crown and his armlet and brings it to David. David and his men are mourning for Israel losing their king. And this is that thing. It's really this interesting this change between they're fighting each other, and then he's honoring him, he's mourning him, the guy who was trying to kill him. And David says, "Why weren't you afraid to kill this guy, the Lord's anointed?"
Yeah.
And David has the guy killed.
Yeah. Which is full circle. Saul's very first sin, not following through with the instruction from God, was he let that Amalekite man live, the king. And now we're full circle back to David actually fulfilling what he was meant to do and taking him out.
And
not the same guy, but another Amalekite.
So at this point, David writes or recites a lament. It's a lamentation for Saul.
The context is he just, without missing a beat, just on the spot, just
went into
voices this, goes into it.
Is it a song? Is that what that means? Or
I think
like a prayer,
like a song prayer. And there's one part too where where it talks about the mountains of the Gilboa. That I guess in the Hebrew, it's the way it's written. He actually pauses. There's like a stop, almost like he's catching his breath. I mean, it's really passionate.
Yeah. Let's see.
I thought we could read that.
It's so beautiful. Let's check. Let's do it.
It's such a popular portion of scripture, and it's gorgeous. This is what David says. He says it's a lament called The Bow. And it goes like this. The beauty of Israel lies slain on your high places. How the mighty have fallen. Don't report it in Gath. Don't spread the news in the streets of Ashkelon. Or the daughters of the Philistines will rejoice. The daughters of the uncircumcised will celebrate. O mountains of Gilboa, may there be no dew or rain on you, nor fields of grain offerings. For it was there that the shield of warriors was defiled. The shield of Saul lies neglected without oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of warriors, the bow of Jonathan was not turned away. The sword of Saul never returned empty. Saul and Jonathan were greatly loved during their lives, and not even in their deaths were they separated. They were swifter than eagles, stronger than lions. O daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet as well as jewelry, who put gold jewelry on your clothes. How the warriors have fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan lies slain on your high places. I grieve over you, my brother Jonathan. You were very dear to me. Your love was more special to me than the love of women. How the warriors have fallen. The weapons of war are destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful.
That's awesome. How the mighty have fallen.
How the mighty have fallen.
So, now we're chapter 2 here. David moves to Hebron. The men of Judah come to meet him. They anoint him as king right then. And so Saul's army commander takes Saul's son.
He has other ideas.
Ishbosheth.
Yeah.
And makes him king over Gilead, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, all of Israel. And so Ishbosheth is king for 2 years, but David is king of Judah. So we have 2 kings right now. Let's see. They are basically going to go into a type of civil war here within Israel. The men of Israel, Abner's men, he's the general. Am I correct here?
Mm-hmm.
He's the general, the lead general. And David's men, it's kind of weird. They're at a pool, I guess getting water of some sort. And they get into a fight. And
they make it's like a duel arrangement.
Yeah,
it's like 12 on 12.
The
I
young
think.
fighters, the best fighters, and it's a fierce fight between them. At some point, Abner, they're getting beat. Israel is getting beat by David's men, Israel's men, and Abner goes and tries to run away, and a guy named Asahel.
Yeah, something like that. They call him he runs like a gazelle.
The swift guy.
He runs like a gazelle, the gazelle runner.
So he won't stop. He's chasing him, and it's kind of interesting. Abner keeps trying to get him to stop.
Yeah, because they know each other.
Yeah, he's like, this isn't going to end good.
He tries to call him off. He's like, he knows that he can best him.
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah, and he won't. And so eventually he catches up, and Abner kills him.
Well, and it says he kills him with the blunt end of his spear. So in my mind, I'm thinking that he wasn't even trying to kill him. Like, he was just trying to knock him away.
Yeah.
But it says the blunt end went all
right
the way
him.
through
Yeah,
him.
it's pretty graphic.
Yeah.
Let's see. Joe is. I'm sorry. That whole thing was set up. One of the commanders, Joab.
Mm-hmm.
His men were the ones chasing Abner.
Yeah, that's gonna be important later.
He finally persuades them to stop.
Well, they catch up.
Gives them a speech.
Yeah, Joab and the other guys catch up with Abner, but Abner's on the high ground. He's got this huge force with him. They're most likely Joab and his men are toast.
Yeah.
So he calls out to him and says, "Guys, what are you doing? We need a truce here," and they agree.
Yeah, and he's right. He's like, even if you win, it's going to be bitter.
Yeah,
we don't have to.
This is a bitter end, no matter what.
Yeah, this is a good situation.
But also, I'm on top of this hill with a ton of guys, and I'm going to cream
it's not going to go well for you.
Look at Gazelle Runner guy.
So then this kind of starts off a long war between, it says, the house of David and the house of Saul. Abner becomes strong in Saul's house. He's really kind of the leader, I think.
Yeah, he's almost more of a king than Ishbosheth.
Yeah,
it feels like.
It says Ishbosheth is afraid of him.
Yeah.
There's a conflict between them about a woman, and Abner feels he's not appreciated in Saul's house, and so I think out of this, that situation goes right into Abner goes to David to make a peace treaty. He goes to all the houses and makes them get together, and they're all going to go on David's side and make a treaty. And so David has a meeting with Abner. They have a feast. They confirm this is going to happen. They're going to have a treaty, a peace treaty. But Joab finds out, and he's mad about it, and he calls Abner to have a secret meeting, and he kills him. So Abner was trying to make peace, and he kills him, but he's taking revenge for Abner killing Asahel, the one from the story we just read, who kept chasing him. So it's kind of a Greek tragedy there. He almost has peace, and then he gets killed for killing someone he didn't want to kill in the first place. David is mad at Joab and his family. He curses them. David makes Joab and everyone mourn Abner. Yeah. David leads the funeral procession, weeping. It's again this incredible honor David has for the men of Israel, which is really
even when they're at his throat.
It's kind of cool. It reminds me of like honorable athletes, or like UFC guys who are fighting so hard and then can appreciate each other.
Like at the end of a UFC fight, you're like, these guys were murdering each other and they're hugging and holding each other.
Yeah, I love this guy. It's so great.
Totes.
So let's see. Ishbosheth, we're at 4 now. Ishbosheth. Saul had, let's see. He had these raiding party leaders that worked for Saul. These guys go in and kill Ishbosheth in his house while he's taking a nap. And they bring Ishbosheth's
it's another dishonorable
head to David. And David, first of all, reminds them of what happened with the guy.
Do you guys not know me?
Yeah, right. Didn't you hear what happened? Like, it was a reward. They're not getting it. He's not wanting to do this fight.
It kind of makes you think of Jesus and the disciples.
He's doing what he has to because he is fighting them, but he's not. It's not gloating over it. It's a sad situation.
Well, what Jesus was with his disciples, they were expecting the warrior side of a Messiah, and he's like, you guys aren't getting this.
Yeah,
it's like that sort of idea.
Yeah, I love it. The honor it's amazing. Anyways, he reminds the guy, and then he kills him. He has his soldiers kill him. That is not a reward to him to see Saul's house his children killed.
Yeah, and in a dishonorable way while they're sleeping.
Right.
He's
I
in
don't even
bed.
think it was just that they got killed. It's how they
did it. Like
doing
he
it
just
and
snuck
gloating.
in and
Here's his head,
yeah.
the prize, So David is now, we're in 5, he's anointed king of all of Israel. He's 30 years old.
Yeah, this is a banner moment.
Incredible. It says he rules for 40 years.
7.5 of those being in Judah. Yeah.
He takes over Jerusalem, and then they call Jerusalem to this day, really, David's city.
Well, it's like Jerusalem as we know it is born.
Yeah.
In chapter 5. Like amazing.
Let's see. I gotta mention this. In one of the battles when he defeats the Philistine, he's praying to God the whole time how to do it. And God instructs him to go around to a certain point, like from behind or something, by the trees.
It reminds me of all the movies, like the one weak spot in the fortress.
And this is what stuck out. God says, attack when you hear the sound of marching in the trees. Oh, wow. Because God is attacking in front of him. Who's up in the trees?
So good.
Who's marching through? There's some kind of other battle going on.
Some unseen army up there.
Yeah, awesome. I love that stuff.
So good.
So David, with his troops, they go get the ark. There's a whole long thing about him moving the ark. David is worshiping with all his strength, with harps, tambourines, rattle cymbals. One of the guys reaches out to steady the ark, and he is killed. David gets afraid. Yeah. He leaves it somewhere else. Obed-Edom's house.
Yeah.
Eventually, he finds out that this guy's house is blessed. I kind of like that.
Oh no, he's like that. At the time that it was there, they got super blessed.
Yeah, he's like,
he's like, okay, maybe this can go back to Jerusalem.
Yeah, so he's not afraid. They bring it back.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It says he makes sacrifices in ox every 6 steps.
Took a 6, yeah.
As they advance toward it, he wears a linen priestly vest. It says he dances with all his strength as it moved into Jerusalem. Of course, Saul's daughter, who is now his wife again.
Yeah, we missed that earlier. When Abner said, "I want to meet with you," he says, "Only if you bring me Hall back."
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So he's got that wife back.
Yeah, but she's not liking how David is acting, which is really interesting.
I think there's something there. I really do, because we saw earlier in that story where she obviously had household idols in her house. So maybe she's still tethered to that world.
Yeah.
And his wholesale, just free worship of his God, Yahweh, might be part of it. And it could be, too, like a status thing. Like, she wants to be the wife of a honored king who's very noble and austere and stoic, and not some guy who's just dancing around free as a bird, Yeah,
I mean, it says he was naked, I guess.
I don't think so, because it just says he has the
debased.
It says he has the. It just said he had the linen ephod on, so maybe it was sheer or something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. She just doesn't like that he's joyously celebrating his God.
She calls it debased, so there's something not how do I say it?
Something she finds unseemly about it.
Yeah, it's not the typical on, like you were saying, like pomp and circumstance kind of.
Yeah, like you're acting like an idiot.
He's just all in.
And he says, I only care about what God thinks.
Yeah,
not what people think.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so that's it, right? I think that's
6. Yeah, it ends with 6.
So that's where we're at with that part. Let's jump in.
It's amazing. Much more good David stuff to come. So keep reading with us.
So cool.
Keep reading.
Cool. We're gonna jump over to the New Testament to Luke. We got 16 through 18. We start off here in 16, the parable of the dishonest manager. This is a really wild one. He's charged against the manager. The manager is wasting money. He's going to get fired. So the manager tries to act quickly because he basically says he can't do anything else. So he has the people who's under him who owe money write contracts with less money than they owe.
Yeah, considerably, yeah.
And the master commends the dishonest manager because he acted cleverly.
Yeah.
This is one that just on the cursory reading I didn't totally understand, and
yeah, I had to jump into it pretty deep dive.
I did a little deep dive on it, and I still totally not sure. To be honest,
I ended up kind of getting there. It's like Jesus was trying to say that he did what he had to do to secure his future. And so Jesus ties that in with the eternal future.
Like he was willing to do whatever he had to do to make this happen. Yeah. And he was clever about it.
It's like the proper attitude and use of wealth, I wrote down, where one uses their possessions to gain, not lose one's future.
Yeah. So
he doesn't ever really commend him for being dishonest. It's just what he's gained out of it.
Yeah.
And this is great, too. It makes you think of also in the scriptures where it says we should be wise as serpents, as innocent as doves. But this guy named Fred Craddock, got a great name, Fred Craddock, he said in this parable, you see that it is possible to manage wealth in ways appropriate to life in the kingdom of God. Yeah. So it's kind of looking to that future.
Yeah, because I think Jesus even says there, these guys are being clever and almost outworking you. For stuff that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's like it's a comparison.
Should be
like if
really all in for this.
This dishonest dude in this worldly setting, how much more should you, as children of light, be about the kingdom business with your dealings? Yeah, and faithfulness.
Yeah, that's awesome. It goes right into whoever is faithful with little is faithful with much. Mm-hmm. Whoever's dishonest with little is dishonest with much. It keeps going there. You can't serve two masters. You can't serve God and wealth. That's the translation I read. I know there's maybe mammon is another one.
It's the God of money.
So Jesus is saying all this.
The whole chapter is revolving around this.
And the Pharisees are there, who it said are money lovers. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
And they could hear him, and it says they're sneering at him. There's so much of this.
In the wrong
So much of
context.
These parables and things. He's talking to them. Even things that I've, took to heart as, so precious as a believer. He was making a point specifically to those guys about
face
something.
To face.
Yeah, he was talking
bold.
talking to them about making a point about something a little different. Like in the last reading, he does all this lost coin, the leaving the 99. That was a direct speech to the Pharisees. He was talking to them. Let's see. We get into then Jesus gives a story about Lazarus.
Yeah, and he's got to keep in mind he's still talking about this issue of wealth.
Yeah, and I'll just give a paraphrase here. There's a rich man who feasts every day. It doesn't give his name, but there's a poor man who can't even get the guy's crumbs. They both die. Lazarus goes to paradise with Abraham, and the rich man goes to hell. The rich man can somehow see Abraham from far off, calls him to dip his finger in water to cool his tongue because he's tormented in the flame.
Gosh, that makes me think of what we just talked about with Samuel and Saul.
Yeah,
tomorrow I'll see you.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're somewhere. But Abraham, let's see. Abraham says, remember you had good things in life and Lazarus had bad, and now it's reversed, basically. And besides, there's a great chasm between us, and we can't reach each other, which is interesting. They can see each other and talk, but great chasm between them somehow. So the rich man asks Abraham to go to his brothers and warn them, but he says they have Moses and the prophets, and if they won't listen to them, they won't listen to someone risen from the dead.
Yeah, even if someone risen from the dead. Amazing.
A lot there.
Yeah.
Really.
That could be a whole podcast, that story.
I want to geek out on all of that.
But keeping in context, just quickly, going through these chapters, I mean, he's talking about this attitude and use of wealth and how they had it one way in life and Lazarus had it the other way in life. And what I love about it too, it's not saying that the wealth is bad.
Mm-mm.
What he's saying is that they forgot that to be blessed meant to be a blessing to others.
And I think that's how it ends there, talking about Moses and the prophets. He's kind of saying they know better.
Yeah, that's
They
what Genesis
already
12 is
know.
all about, is that to be a blessing to everyone, to the nations.
Yeah.
Not to not love on this guy in life. And then it's funny too, because even in death, he's almost kind of still bossing the guy around. Like, hey, go do this thing for me. Talk to my brothers. Like, it's that same,
right.
It's not the right attitude. Francis Schaeffer, a couple of his books really stuck with me and helped me. He always used the phrase uncompassionate wealth. That's the wrong kind of wealth.
Yeah.
It's where it's used for selfish, personal gain only, and not to be a blessing to others. And I think that's what, like, on the surface, this is what this is talking about when he's, like you said, face to face, this guy is saying, look, you money lovers.
Yeah.
But there's so much there you could, like, huge deep dive into.
Yeah. We'll keep going here. 17. Jesus talks about how temptation's going to come. He gives a woe to those who it comes through, basically saying, don't lead other people into sin. It's better to tie a millstone, be thrown into the sea. The disciples asked Jesus to increase their faith. He says if they had faith of a mustard seed, they could uproot a tree and plant it in the ocean.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, the translation I read said mulberry tree.
There's a story about an unworthy servant, basically like go beyond your duty kind of thing, I believe, and do more than you're regularly asked. Not just, how do you say that? The least bit of what you have to do?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Jesus heals 10 lepers. Only one comes back and thanks him. He says, your faith has made you well.
Yeah, it's so cool when he says just one came back. And this commentary I was reading said that was interesting because he said, what did he say? Go and show yourselves to the priests. That's what he says to do, which was the custom to do, which is more, in effect, of saying go to the temple.
Yeah.
But the one guy who was a Samaritan turned and went to Jesus, who was, John will tell us in his gospel, he is the temple, like personified. That was kind of a cool kind of imagery.
Interesting, yeah.
Like he kind of did go to the temple, but he went to the right place.
Yeah. So the Pharisees are asking him when the kingdom will come. Jesus basically says it's not what you think. It's in the midst of you. The day will come when you long to see the days of the Son of Man. That's a whole thing. But don't go looking, basically, because it's going to come on you like lightning.
Yeah.
And he gives several examples. Basically, life is going to go on. People are going to be living like they did in the days of Noah, like they did in the days of Lot. Eating, drinking, planning, building, buying, selling. But then whammy, it comes on them really quick. And don't try to hold on to anything. He specifically talks about Lot's wife.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is.
Don't look back. Don't grieve it. Let it go and go on, because the whole thing's going down, basically.
Yeah.
And then he talks about those who try to save their lives will lose them. Those who lose their lives will save them. In there, the disciples say, where will this happen? Jesus says a kind of a cryptic thing, where there's a corpse, there will be vultures.
Yeah.
Could be a couple different ways of viewing that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Could be Rome, could be people just gather around when something crazy happens, drama, that
Could
kind
be
of
that
thing.
it's just also it's too late, like where the vultures are. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
I saw this one thing said it could be understood that those who are left at the final judgment, Jesus' reply would be that their whereabouts would be obvious in the same way that circling birds made obvious the location of corpses. It's pretty fascinating imagery.
Yeah, it's quite.
There's a whole lot there.
Yeah, it's quite the same.
Ways to go. Yeah.
Yeah. 18, we get into the parable of the widow and the judge. Basically about continuing to pray. She keeps bothering this judge until he answers her. There's a parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, which is that's one I love, where this guy is, his prayer is all high and mighty. Thank you, Lord, I'm not like this guy over there. The other guy says, Lord, have mercy, I'm a sinner. Jesus basically says that's he had it right, not the other guy.
Humility, repentance.
People are bringing children to Jesus for Jesus to bless. The disciples try to keep them away. He says, you won't get into the kingdom unless you enter like a child.
It's interesting because this one has always a little weirded me out as well. And what I read that helped me was that children have zero status in that culture. They're just as lowly as you can get. And so that's what he's talking about, that kind of humility, that kind of the humble will be exalted. That's the way.
Yeah. I'm still thinking about that in the way that they believe what they're told. You know what I mean? Like they haven't had time to
That's true
have
too,
a whole bunch of other stuff, so they're just having to go by what you say. Let's see.
Yeah, there's like a weird obedience and faithfulness there too.
Yeah. An important man asked Jesus what he must do to have eternal life. Jesus lists some of the commandments, which is interesting. Man says, I've obeyed all of these. Jesus says there's one you still need to do. And that's give everything away and follow me, which is awesome. To me, that was more of a, he was calling him into the group to be one of the disciples. Come with us.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's do this. It was actually a high calling he was giving the guy.
Sure.
But the man was sad because he was rich. And Jesus talks about how it was hard for the rich to get into the kingdom. And the crowd responds, which is probably the right response. Yeah. How can anybody be saved?
Yeah,
they were like, yeah, those terrible people.
This is probably a pretty good dude, this rich ruler.
I think so.
Yeah, because he said he kept these commands.
I don't think he was. I've heard some people talk like he was lying. He really wasn't. He obviously couldn't keep all the commandments like he said he was. But I think he was trying. Well, I think Jesus kind of liked him.
Totally. Well, and this is coming on the heels, too, where Jesus had just said you can't serve two masters, God and money. And he's kind of saying, too, here, because he says he kept this command, and that command, which was the right thing to do. But the one thing he didn't keep, if money was his God, then the very first commandment he was breaking. That's to have any other God before the one true God.
Yeah.
Had a hold of him.
Right. And Peter says, hey, we did.
I love it.
Remember us? Peter. We did it.
Hey, Jesus.
We left everything.
And he's like, I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
He says, this is awesome. Anyone who gives up a home or wife or brothers or family or children because of God's kingdom, much more will be given to him in this life. That's interesting. And in the future world. I love that phrase, future world.
Oh, wow. That's good.
They will have eternal life, future world. Awesome. Again, Jesus predicts his death, like explicitly, and it makes note that they don't understand. And we end here with the blind man who keeps yelling at Jesus. Again, this is awesome because it starts off with the parable of the widow and the judge, and it ends here with this guy who keeps bothering Jesus.
Yeah.
He won't leave him alone. This is kind of a living example of what he just had talked about that. And he said, what do you want from me? He says, I want to see. He says, look and you will see. Your eyes are healed because of your faith. The man is healed and praises God. When the crowd sees what happens, they praise God as well. And that is where we end there on 18.
Awesome. Recovery of sight to the blind.
Yeah, incredible.
Which is what he said he was about to do when he quoted Isaiah way back in chapter 4.
Awesome. So we covered a lot of ground today, man. So much cool stuff there. I'm I'm really enjoying David's story arc, life arc.
And we're just kind of getting into his big part.
Yeah, it's great reading straight through, seeing everything leading up to these points and how they connect, and enjoying it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Continue to tune in and subscribe and share, and we'll be coming back with week 17 next week. So have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.